And now, Death Valley Days. Howdy, folks. I'm the old ranger, and I have another interesting true story for you about the historic Death Valley country.
This is a most unusual story. It's about a tree family. No, I don't mean a family tree, but quite literally a tree family. All three generations of the Washington elm. Here in this famous old Currier and Ives print, we see the original elm, the granddaddy of the family, situated on the common at Cambridge, Massachusetts. Under its spreading branches, General George Washington took command of the Continental Army on July 3rd, 1775. The tree, already more than a half a century old, became known thenceforth as the Washington elm, an historic tree, a revered landmark in New England. But what's it got to do with the building of the West, which is the theme of our Death Valley Days program? Well, that's the story. Generations of Harvard students have passed under the branches of the Washington elm on the Cambridge Common, just as Arthur Collins is doing on this day in 1889.
Hiya, Phil.
Hello, Art. Janice, may I present Arthur Collins? Miss Janice Peabody.
Glad to meet you.
How do you do?
Art comes from Washington.
Such a beautiful city.
Oh, not Washington, D.C. The state of Washington.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You needn't be. It's great country.
But rather wild, I imagine.
Sure. You should see his collection of scalps.
Philip, really. I think it's wonderful you've come all these thousands of miles to attend Harvard.
Oh, he's doing graduate work.
I've already got my bachelor's degree from the University of Washington.
You mean they have a university out there?
Oh, you bet. Going strong. Phil's coming out to Seattle to look us over. Oh, I've got to go. It was nice to have met you, Miss Peabody. I'll see you later, Phil.
Nice chap, Collins.
What on earth did he mean about your going out to Seattle?
Well, I'll tell you. But not here. Let's wait till we reach your house. Stop calling it Northwest Territory. It's a state of Washington. It's been a state for the past 10 years. Well, I know that sounds funny compared with Massachusetts.
And how old is the university?
Well, age isn't everything, darling. Well, I've called you darling before.
But not so loud.
Well, I feel like shouting it at the top of my lungs.
Phil, what has gotten into you?
The spirit of the West.
We agreed that we'd simply have an understanding until you finish college, a year from June.
And you know what I want to do then? Take you out to the Northwest with me. Oh, marry you first, of course.
Lake Louise? On a honeymoon?
No, Seattle, to live. I'd like to hang my shingle out there.
Thanks. I have no desire to migrate.
Your blessed ancestors did, back in 1620.
It was different. They were escaping from something. Nobody'd ever want to escape from Boston.
They were looking for a good life in a new land. And that's what I feel it would be for us.
You've been listening too much to that Arthur Collins.
Oh, you'd get excited, too, if you could hear him talk. See his pictures. Let me bring him around one afternoon for tea, won't you, Jan? Kind of forlorn for a fella 3,000 miles from home in a strange city.
Cambridge isn't strange. Well, all right.
I'll tell him.
Washington Territory was still a wilderness when the university was started.
In 1861.
It was magnificent country. Just a sample of some of the scenery in the state of Washington. The settlers cleared the land and raised the money for the first building of the university. Here, I'll show you a picture of that. There.
That's quite impressive for the backwoods.
And here's the first president of the university, Asa S. Mercer. Just graduated from college himself. He was the entire faculty, too.
You taught everything?
For the munificent salary of $200 per annum.
But first he had to go out and recruit students from every logging camp along Puget Sound.
Just backwoodsmen?
Yes. Most of them earned their tuition by helping clear the forest from around the campus.
What a contrast to Harvard. My great-great-great-grandfather was in the Continental Army that assembled under the Washington elm.
The one on the common.
I know. I've looked at it many times, and I thought we should have such a tree on our campus. It would be so right. The university that bears the same name.
But you couldn't. That tree's historic, and you can't duplicate something historic.
It could be reproduced, maybe.
What do you mean?
We could take a cutting and transplant it.
By George, that's an idea.
Cut a branch off the Washington elm? What, the authorities would never let you.
I know some of the people at the Arboretum. Would you like me to introduce you to them?
Would you, Phil?
You bet.
Of course, they may say the whole idea is impractical. An elm's a hard tree to root, I understand.
But it's worth a try.
Most of them look completely dead.
Give them time.
Well, Park Commissioner told me if these didn't live, we'd take some more cuttings.
You've got all the botanists around Cambridge as interested as if a crown prince were to be born.
Come on, Junior. Grow.
Philip isn't coming over this evening?
Apparently not, Mother.
What has happened to that young man lately? He doesn't seem to be coming around as much as he used to.
He has a new interest over at the Arnold Arboretum. Watching elm whips grow.
What are you talking about?
It's true. They're trying to produce a scion of the Washington elm.
Our elm?
There's only one Washington elm.
But that tree is nearly 200 years old. I mean, really, after all, what's it for?
A college campus, 3,000 miles from here.
Well, a son of the Washington elm.
It's all the fault of that friend of his from Washington, Arthur Collins. He's got Phil so bemused he can't think of anything else.
Well, as long as it isn't another girl, dear.
I'd rather it were. I could compete with a girl. What do you do when your rival's a tree?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 leaves. And as healthy as you ever saw. The staff here at the Arboretum are jubilant.
How soon will you be able to ship it out?
Not for another 2 years.
That long?
Well, it's got to be strong enough to stand a trip across the continent. I've written Professor Meany, though. I told him the good news.
Who's Meany?
Professor of History at Washington. And the man most responsible for our present campus. Trees are his hobby.
If you need a personal escort for that young elm, I'll be glad to offer my services.
You'll be going out there before 2 years.
Well, that all depends.
You're not changing your mind about the Northwest.
Oh, no. I'm as keen about it as ever. But, there are other factors.
You'll be able to persuade her, Phil.
I'm doing my darndest. At last, my law degree. Philip Adams, LLM.
Oh, Phil, I'm so happy.
And the next thing is for you to get your MRS, Mrs.
Just as soon as you can convince my family that you're in a position to support me.
Well, I don't expect to earn much to start.
Well, Father can help you secure a good position with a big Boston law firm.
That won't be necessary, because I've already accepted one.
You have? Where?
Seattle, Washington.
Oh, Phil, you're not serious.
Well, I've always said I wanted to go out to that country.
And I thought I always made it very plain that I didn't.
Oh, well, look,
How could you without consulting me?
darling, if it doesn't work out, if you're not happy there, I promise I'll bring you back.
Bring me back? I'm not even going.
I've already accepted, Jan.
Then you'll have to break the contract. Unless you'd rather break our engagement.
You don't mean that.
Oh, yes, I do. I'm just not the pioneer type.
Washington isn't a wilderness. It's a glorious country.
According to your booster friend, Mr. Art Collins.
I don't know why you resent Collins so much.
Because he's come between us, that's why.
Collins?
Times he's dragged you to the Arboretum to look at that stupid elm.
Oh, Jan, for heaven's sakes, you're not jealous of that.
I'm jealous of anything that keeps us apart.
Oh, darling, I do love you.
Then you'll stay?
No. No. I'm going out to Washington if I have to go by myself.
All right. Then that's exactly how you'll go.
Hey, Bill, hold on. I've been looking all over Seattle for you. The trees arrived this morning by express.
Did you say trees? Plural?
2 of them, about so high. And as thrifty as if they've been moving next door. All meanies pleased as punch.
Where are they going to plant them?
In front of Lewis Hall, in a single hole like one tree. If you want to watch a ceremony, we'll have to shake a leg.
This twin tree has crossed our great continent just as our pioneer forebears did. This true son of the Washington elm brings with it the American tradition of freedom inherited from its noble parent in Cambridge, Massachusetts, under whose branches General George Washington took command of the Continental Army more than 125 years ago. May this tree and the ideals it represents flourish on our Washington State campus for another century and more.
You didn't hear a word Meanie said. Your mind was on a certain lovely lady 3,000 miles away back in Cambridge.
You're right. It was.
Nothing for me?
No, dear, that's all. Janice, how much longer are you going to moon over this Philip Adams? It's 4 years now since he went west. It's 1905. And you're still Miss Peabody. Janice, you can't afford to be an old maid. New England has too many of them as it is.
You're quite right, Mother. Freddie Brewster's asked me to marry him.
A Mayflower family. Janice, how wonderful.
Then you'll be very pleased to know I'm going to say yes.
Oh, my dear.
You are an old grad. Class of 96.
Have you been back to any of your class reunions at Harvard?
No, I thought I might attend my FIP, but I didn't.
Tell me, oh, here comes Professor Meany. Hello, Dr. Meany.
Collins, I was just thinking of you. I'm reminded of our debt of thanks to you every time I pass our Washington elm.
How's it doing, sir?
It's as tall as I am now.
And growing like a weed.
Of course, you were practically born on Bunker Hill, Adams. But to our boys and girls out here, all this early American history is only book stuff. They've never visited the scenes, had the thrill of thinking, here on this very spot it happened. Well, at least they can look at this tree and say to themselves, its father witnessed one of the great events of American history.
I just hope it lives to be 200, like its sire back in Cambridge.
It will if care has anything to do with it. We're on the track of a wonderful gardener, a German named Ludwig Metzger, and I shall give him special instructions. Nice to see you, Collins.
Dr. Meany.
Adams.
Goodbye, sir.
This tree came from the East Coast 3,000 miles away, Mr. Metzger.
Aber, just like me.
And it has a most distinguished father.
I have also.
Really?
George Washington.
George Washington?
I take out papers, become American citizen. George Washington is fathered from this country, huh?
1,000 times, yeah. This tree is the offshoot of a tree back in Massachusetts known as the Washington elm because it was under its branches that General Washington took command of the army in the American Revolution.
Ach so.
So guard this young elm with your life. Don't let anything happen to it.
With my life, Herr Professor. With my life.
What's going on out there?
Spring riot between the sophomores and the freshmen.
Watch out for the tree!
Watch out for the tree! Go away for the tree! Watch out for the tree! Watch out for the tree! Boys, get away from the tree!
Metzger! You all right?
Yeah.
You sure? No limbs broken?
Not a limb. God, sit down. Our Washington elm is safe.
World War I came and went. The young elm on the campus of the University of Washington grew tall and strong. But back in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in October 1923, a nor'easter hit New England, lashing the whole coast with violent gales, leaving death and destruction in its wake. And claiming as one of its victims the Washington elm, which had stood so proudly on the Cambridge Common for 210 years.
But the good people of Cambridge did not forget. And several years later, in 1927, Dean Condon of the University of Washington received a strange request.
The letter was addressed to me as Dean of the University.
Why, it has hundreds of signatures.
All the patriotic folk of Cambridge.
They want us to send them back our tree so that they can plant it on the site of the elm that's gone. Of all the nerve.
You can't blame them, Ed. The Washington elm was an historical shrine.
But our elm belongs to us. It's been on our campus for 25 years.
Yes, but it is a true son of the old elm.
You aren't suggesting we give it up?
Oh, I don't want to part with it any more than you do.
It's out of the question.
I don't think we should say no until we find out if it could be moved. That's why I've called in our head gardener, Ludwig Metzger. He can give us an expert opinion. What do you think, Ludwig?
The tree is too big, Dean Condon. It could never be transplanted 3,000 miles.
What did I tell you?
Well, I guess that's our answer.
I'm afraid so.
Thank you, Metzger.
Well, I'll write our friends in Cambridge. They'll be disappointed.
Explain we have no choice.
You dig up this tree, then nobody have a tree.
Quite right. But I am sorry on their account.
I wonder, would you be willing I try an experiment with that tree?
What kind of an experiment?
Well, this tree is even more valuable now that the old one is gone.
It might not succeed, but if it did, you could send to the people of Cambridge what they want. A true descendant from the Washington elm.
All right, Ludwig, go ahead.
But be careful. I will start at once.
Hey, Ludwig, what's going on up in our elm?
You know this, huh?
How could I help it? That big box built around the limb. What's the idea?
You come around a couple of years from now and I show you.
Couple of years?
Yeah. By then we know whether we have succeeded or not. Beyond my greatest expectations.
Congratulations.
A wonderful job. Would you mind explaining just what you did?
It is very simple, what we call heirloom. I select the limb on the tree that has a few side branches, cut about 1/3 way through the limb, and fasten the box over and on top of the cut. Then I fill the box with moss and fertilizer and good garden soil, water it well, and let nature do the rest.
For more than 2 years.
Right. And today, when I open the box, it is full with fibrous roots. Now, we cut the limb off so...
And we have a new tree.
Fine, strong, young tree.
Which we can ship back east to Cambridge. To stand where its grandfather stood.
Let me know when you do, because I want to be there. I was in on the birth of Washington, Jr., watched it planted on the university campus. I want to be present on the Cambridge Common when the grandson comes home. Home. It's been too long since I've been back.
This sturdy elm stock has crossed the continent to the last outpost of pioneer America. And now comes home again to the same soil where its illustrious ancestor once stood. There are battles of freedom to be fought today. And may this elm inspire us with a moral courage, which is as much needed now as it was 175 years ago. On behalf of the University of Washington, I take pleasure in presenting to the citizens of Cambridge, Massachusetts, this grandson of the Washington elm.
I wasn't sure you'd recognize me.
I half expected you'd be here when I read that the University of Washington was presenting us with a son of your elm.
Do you still live in Cambridge?
In the old home. I moved back after my husband died.
Oh, I didn't know. I never heard.
It happened some years ago. He was killed in the war.
I'm sorry.
Well, tell me about yourself.
Could I come and see you while I'm here?
Well, of course, and bring your wife.
Well, I would if I had one, but I'm not married.
Well, that must be why you look so young. Come and have dinner with me tonight.
Nothing could give me more pleasure. I can't believe it's been 30 years.
You graduated in 1901.
June the 6th. We stood in this very same room. Two silly, stubborn kids.
You haven't told me about the Northwest. Has it lived up to your expectations?
In every respect but one. Will you go back with me, Janice?
You don't think it's too late?
Too late? We're just ready to appreciate life. Oh, my darling, my darling.
Isn't it strange how things work out? To think that the tree that separated us is the thing that's brought us together again.
And that's the true story of 3 generations of the Washington elm. Symbol of American liberty and the union between East and West.